Hello, everyone. As a continuation from the previous video where we created a grade conversion system, if you recall, so when we were to enter, let's say 90, then you get an A, or 80, you get a B, or 65, you get a D. And if it was, let's say 59, we said the students, sorry, you have failed the class. Now we want to, we had like a while loop, right? So if you recall, here's the program. We did a while true and then just allow the teacher to enter as many grades as possible. But now what I want to do in this video is to make it a little bit more dynamic, not just make it loop forever, but rather we want to create a program that will be based on based on number of students that the teacher has, right? So I'll make changes to this program. Let me just go ahead and start this. So what I will do is now instead of while true, I want it for it to loop through a certain number of iterations. And the number of iterations will be dependent on how many students the teacher has. So what we can do, I can create a variable here. They call it num students persons, right? And here you're going to be an integer and you create an input. So we're asking the teacher to enter the number of students he or she has in his or her class. So it said enter the number of students in your class, okay? So, and then we wanted to iterate over the number of students. So what we can do, we can create another variable here. Let's call it I, and we set I to 1. So that would be like the very first iteration. And we wanted to iterate, to loop through this until the number of students is done. So we said while I is less than or equals to num students, right? So meaning, so it will loop through this until the number of students until I equals to the number of students that the teacher entered, and then the program will end. Let's give it, and then of course, so one iterate through this one when I is less than or equal to number of students. Let's say the teacher enters 5 students, I equals to 1, so 1 is less than 5, and we know that. So then that means this loop will run, right? And then you want to also keep track of like, okay, if you run the first time, you want to increment I so that the program will keep running. Otherwise, it's just going to run forever because 1 is always going to be less than or equal to 5. I hope this makes sense. So what I can do is, so whenever the teacher enters the grade, we want it to loop. But then let me put here. So right after he enters the grade, we can automatically increment I here by 1, right? So let's run this. So let's say this, let me explain this a little bit out. So let's say actually, one thing important, you see here, like there's no space. If I were to enter a number here, it's like a very, like kind of, there's no space between my input and the string. So what I can do is always a good practice to create a space here. So let me stop the program. That way, when the teacher enters a number, there's a space between the class and the input, right? So let's run this. So I'm going to explain this one out a little bit. So let's say enter the number of students in your class. Let's say the teacher has 3 students, right? So we should expect the program to prompt the teacher to enter the grades 3 times because you have 3 students. So let's run it. So enter your grade between 90 and 5. So it's 90. Again, he's an A, so 87, 97, right? And then 100, exactly. And you see the program stopped. We could only run 3 times. That is because we said for it to loop while I is less than or equals to the number of students entered. So that kind of makes it a little bit more dynamic and the program can stop based on what was inputted. I hope this makes sense. Again, what is very important here is to make sure you increment your I. Look what happens if you do not increment I. I can just put control slash. It will, it's the backward slash, and it will automatically comment it out. So let's say if I run this, I say number of students you have in your class. Let's say we put 3. Right? Enter your grade, put 100. Enter your grade 100. Enter your grade 100. It will keep on running. It will keep on running forever because we never incremented I, and I will always be, we know that 1 will always be less than or equals to 5, right? And another option is like we could have started I equal to 0, but then if you start I equal to 0, then I will have be less than number of students instead of less than or equal to. So it's completely up to you. You can start with 0, but if you start with 0, you have to count from 0, and then you will not include the last number. So I hope this makes sense. And if you have questions, please leave in the comment section. Let me put back the comments here. Okay, so what I want to do, let's kind of make this program a little bit more interesting, not just enter grades and convert them. I want it so that this teacher can also calculate the averages, right? See how many students, based on the information that was entered by the student, by the teacher, what was the average. So I will go ahead and delete all of this. So all of these, I'm no longer interested in the conversions. Right? I mean, if you want, you can keep that like a separate program. So so let's here. So okay, now whenever they enter grade, and we say we're going to be incremented by 1. So let's go ahead and create. So we know that an average is the total divided by the number that was entered. So let's go ahead and create a variable here. You've got total equal to 0. So that's kind of the initial number, right? The initial value of total is 0 because we didn't enter anything. But once the teacher start entering values, we want that grade number to be added inside the total variable right here. So what we can do then, we can say total equals to total plus grade, right? So whatever they entered, this will be the new total. So the new total would be, so let's say here, initially the total is 0. So if they enter 90, the total would be 0 plus 90, which will be 90. And now when they loops again, now the total is already 90, and then you entered another grade, let's say enter 100, so the total become 190. I hope this makes sense. So let's just look through this. And let me I'm just going to print the total just to make sure it's actually working, right? So as you can see, you see the indentation, the print is not inside here because we want it to print right after the loop ends, right? So if you put the print, let's say you move the print up here, then it will print this total right here. So the new total, whenever the total is created, it will keep on printing it instead of printing the general total, like the total. I hope that makes sense. All right, so let me run this. So I said how many students. So sometimes just a screen. Okay, let me stop here, run again. Number of students in your class. Let's say we put 3, right? Enter grade, put 100. Second student had 100. Third student had 100. Look, the total is 300 because all 300s have been added together, right? And we know now our program is working. Now let's see what happens if I were to move the print up here. So I put number of students, I have 300, 100, you see, now it's printing the new total. So total by what, so it's printing the total that is within the loop, within the while loop. So if I put here, let's say the second grade is 90, so you see it's showing, it keep on printing the totals, and let's say I put a 90 here, is 280. So it's not going to wait for the entire thing, it's just going to print the total as they come, right? Because it's inside the while loop. But if you do here, we're just going to say, okay, I want it, once the program is done, print the general total. Okay, now that we know the total, then we can calculate the average, right? So we can create a variable here. So let's call it average equals. So we know that average will be equal to total divided by the number of students that was entered. Number of students, right? And then let's go ahead just to make sure it's working. We're going to put print average. So that way we can see our average here. All right. So it's asking us number of students in your class. Let's just put 3. So enter grade 100. Second student 100. Third student 100. Now the average, of course, is showing as 100 because 300 divided by 3 is 100. Now let's try different numbers. Let's say the teacher has 5 students. So we should expect our program to run 5 times. So let's say the first student has 90, and then the second student has 87, and then third student has 85, and the fourth student has 100, and the fifth student has 92. So the total is 495 and the average is 90.8. So this is kind of a very simple program, kind of allows the teacher to know, okay, what was the average of my class? Now you can even maybe add some comment to it. It's like, hey, the average of this class, right? So this is a string, right? So of this class, and then you can put is. So now I'm combining the string with the average. So if I run it, I can put, okay, let's say I have a 5, and then I have the first student has 100, and the second student has 90, and then 98, and then other student have 59, and then 60, and we say total is this, the average of this class is 81.4. And that's it. It's just, you can play with this and change it however way you like, and you can add new constraints if you like, or whatever new comment. Even here, the total, you can change it because the total is, maybe you do not need the total anymore. Maybe you don't even need to print the total, right? Maybe you're just interested in the average. You can just comment this one out. It does not impact it because it's the average. We're still going to print correctly because it's still being calculated up here. And that's it. I hope this makes sense. And if you have any questions, please leave in the comment section, and have a great day.